Well, it's been a colourful news week indeed in the region. To discuss more about these developments, we have in studio our foreign editor, Sophie Mokoena. Good afternoon, Sophie. Always a pleasure to have you on the desk.
Good afternoon.
Well, we hear that Grace Mugabe applying now, requesting diplomatic immunity. A ploy to get out of hot water or not, Sophie?
Well, we've just received a statement from the police service indicating that what is, for me, breaking news, that she is still in the country and that the Harare has dispatched a team to come and have a discussion with international relations applying for immunity. And I think it's true that she is still in the country because President Mugabe is expected to arrive in South Africa later today. In fact, he was supposed to leave Harare at 4 o'clock and it takes 45 minutes to land. I think at Waterloo he might have landed by now and perhaps on his way to the hotel where he's going to be. And I suspect then they will meet at the hotel that I don't know yet, but apparently she's still in the country and she's expected to accompany President Robert Mugabe to the SADC summit that gets underway this coming Saturday.
Let's move to Zambia. The opposition leader Hakainde Hichilema has been released from maximum security prison. Was this always a case of a trumped-up traffic violation being used to further political agenda?
Well, I spoke to the High Commissioner of Zambia a few weeks ago. He indicated that it wasn't only about this issue of perhaps him not giving way to the motorcade of the president, but there were other issues related to violence. And the main gripe was that he was refusing to accept the results of the elections. And therefore, I think it is for that reason there was constant confrontation in Zambia, and that led to perhaps this issue being used as one of the reasons perhaps for him to be arrested but bring in other issues. But we are told that earlier on I spoke to his team in Zambia around 11 o'clock. They called me to indicate that he has been released, and indeed you can check his Twitter account and Facebook live streaming of the events as it unfolds, him going back home, thousands and thousands of his supporters outside the house and outside court, and now he is at home. And thanks to the Commonwealth and the former president of Nigeria, Olusegun Obasanjo, the man who came with the mediation process. And this reminds me of something that President Obasanjo said when he was launching a book some few weeks ago, saying that the mistake we do on the continent is witch hunt. And I remember the High Commissioner asking question about the behavior of the media on the continent, and Obasanjo saying we must live side by side, but saying that also the sitting heads of state and government or leaders must also exercise power and with caution. And sometimes there are things that you just have to deal with a rising situation in a different manner rather than being heavy-handed or perhaps being hard, because they end up creating a negative environment in your country, but also attracting negative reports on your leadership and your government.
Sophie, let's move to another big unfolding story, developing story on the continent, and that would be the Kenyan electoral process. Of course, in news just in, we hear that the opposition alliance NASA is now approaching the Supreme Court to petition those presidential results. When a few days ago, Raila Odinga said he would not do that, now change of heart. What do you make of it at this point?
He was isolated. The international community sending messages to Raila, to Uhuru Kenyatta, congratulating him, and particularly Donald Trump yesterday saying that congratulations to Uhuru Kenyatta, but saying that if Raila Odinga is not happy, he must follow the laws of that country. And in terms of the electoral process, the Supreme Court stands ready to deal with any dispute, and it is for that reason he had to go there. The international observers, they were very clear. If you are not happy, go to the Supreme Court, as indicated in terms of the constitution of that country that was adopted in 2010. And I think he had no choice but to go to the Supreme Court, you know, to fight the battle there. But clearly, he hasn't accepted the results, but let's see what will transpire at the Supreme Court. It is his democratic right to do that, because that's what the Constitution stipulates. And I think that is the best option, because that will sort of assist in terms of bringing down tension, because everybody is expecting him to say, let's go and fight, and he doesn't say that. He's saying, I'm following the process, I'm going to the Supreme Court, and I think he deserves credit for that. And this is the man who has been credited with a lot of work that he has done in Kenya to try and democratize Kenya. And I think in his twilight, he can't mess up with such a good track record, and I think that was the best option.
Tragedy in Sierra Leone with the fatal mudslide that's engulfed an entire settlement, hundreds feared dead and missing. How forthcoming has international aid been at this point, Sophie?
Well, we heard that the International Red Cross is assisting, and they will be dispatching a team from London to go and assist. But secondly, we are expecting this afternoon the Secretary General of the United Nations to have a media briefing, and I guess high on the agenda or his address will be the issue of Sierra Leone. And Shawan Bricepiece is on standby at the UN in New York, and he will give us an update. And definitely, I'm sure many international community or countries are prepared to help Sierra Leone. But my issue is Africa must lead the way.
Sophie Mokoena, always a pleasure having you on the desk and sharing your insights with us this afternoon. On that note, let's move on to some other news now.